Hello and welcome. My name is Larry Pino. I'm the president of the Diversified Cash Flow Institute and just want to welcome you to this particular tape. I have a lot that I want to cover and over a very brief period of time. We have about 20 minutes together. And I want to first of all thank you for the opportunity to have addressed you and given you an understanding of what the cash flow business is all about. But I also want to welcome here any additional people that you've brought in to see this video. I'd like to talk a little bit about the entire advent of the cash flow industry, to give you an idea of where this industry actually occurred, where it came from, and where it's going from here. So before I actually get started in terms of an explanation of the industry, let me first of all describe to you how this remarkable industry actually occurred. You know, I started off in real estate back in the old days when everybody used to make money in real estate. And I don't know if you were involved in real estate at the time, but it was in the late 1970s when no matter what you bought went up. And of course, that wasn't because you were terribly smart, it was because of inflation. Well, real estate went up and up and up, and eventually the government got smart. Too many people were making too much money, and what they did is they passed the Tax Reform Act of 1986. So in the process of doing that, and in the process of seeing what was happening on a congressional level, I began to sell off all of my real estate and to take back promissory notes. And I didn't do that for any particular reason except that I knew that if I took back a promissory note, it was a lot easier for me to sell my real estate. Well, unbeknownst to me, what that did is it backed me into this industry that I didn't even really know existed. I took back the promissory notes, realized in short order that it was a whole lot easier for me to just simply take a portfolio of promissory notes in a 3-ring binder than it was to hassle the repairs and the maintenance and the problems associated with tenants and all of that stuff with real estate. So I eventually gravitated into not only selling all my real estate, taking back notes, but I also gravitated towards going out and actively finding those notes. So over a period of time, all the way through the late 1980s, I started to buy promissory notes, I started to buy invoices, I started to buy equipment leases, and before I knew it, I was steeped in what I call now the debt instrument industry. That is the diversified cash flow industry. I didn't know it existed at the time, but I did know that that was something which, from my standpoint, turned out to be enormously profitable. When I began to teach other people to do what I had learned how to do through my institutes here in Orlando, it became apparent to me that other people could make the same type of money that I was making by doing it in 2 different ways. They could either buy these types of debt instruments for their own account, or in the alternative, they could broker it to other people who had the cash to be able to buy them and to make a nice hefty fee on their own. So as I began to develop the institutes, I recognized that what I thought were just a couple debt instruments, promissory notes, invoices, tax certificates, things of that nature, turned out to be 8 debt instruments, then eventually 28 debt instruments, then finally 43 debt instruments. And where we are right now is we have exactly 47 debt instruments represented in 5 categories, and it seems to me that the list keeps on growing. What's happened at this point, therefore, is that we have developed an entire network of individuals who have found a way to profit substantially by getting involved in this industry, an industry, I have to tell you, which 2 to 3 years ago didn't even exist. And I want you to recognize that you have an opportunity to participate with us now in not only the exploration of that industry, but also the expansion of an industry which is actually brand new in the entire economy that's actually out there. What I'd like to do is give you some understanding of how the cash flow industry actually works so that you get a better feeling for where you can actually make the money when you're out there. So let's talk about that. There are 2 basic ways that you can make money in the cash flow industry. The first way is with what we call being a broker. Now, what does a broker do? A broker goes out into the general economy, doesn't matter who they're contacting. They're either contacting consumers if they feel more comfortable just talking to consumers, or business people if they feel more comfortable talking to business people, and they find these different types of debt instruments that are for sale. Once they find the debt instrument for sale, and I'll kind of describe to you what those debt instruments are in a second, they then match up those debt instruments with funding sources that are out there to buy them. And literally there are, and we have a directory of them, several hundred of these institutional funding sources that literally have billions of dollars capable of buying these debt instruments that are available. We match them up as a broker such that when the broker puts together the seller with the funding source that buys the debt instrument, what ends up happening is they make a fee or a commission or, if you will, a profit to such an extent that it has produced a brand new industry and what I call a professional designation as an independent professional broker. You see, when I first started to get involved in the industry, there was no such thing as an independent professional broker. There were funding sources, of course. They were buying these debt instruments from the sellers. But when they were buying the debt instruments for the sellers, they were doing it through employees. There was no professional category of people out there actually making money in it. However, something interesting occurred. As we began to train brokers to go out and find these sellers and to turn the sellers over to the funding sources such that the funding sources would buy these things and the independent brokers would make a profit, before you know it, the funding sources started to come to me and say, you know what, Larry, if you train more brokers, we'll be able to find more deals. And if we find more deals, we'll be able to make more money. Therefore, we're relying on you to train more brokers for us so that they make a profit, funding sources make a profit, the seller ends up liquidating their debt, everybody is happy. And that's, of course, exactly what I did. At this point in time, what is absolutely unique about this industry is that, first of all, it's an industry that does not require any inventory whatsoever. You don't have to load up your garage with stuff that you sell to your friends or to your neighbors. On top of that, number two, it's 100% white collar. You don't have to get your hands dirty. And I say that not because I dislike real estate, because obviously I made some good money on real estate, but I know both sides of the street. I know real estate and I know debt instruments. And as between the two of them, I'll take a debt instrument any day. Number three, not only do you not have to get your hands dirty, but unlike with real estate, that you can find all the real estate that you want, or other businesses where you can find all the businesses that you want, here is an opportunity to get involved in an industry where capital is never an issue. Why do I say that? Because the funding sources that we have in our proprietary directory are funding sources that have the capital to buy all the deals that you will ever come up with. So you have, number three, no capital requirement at all. The fourth major aspect of this industry that we're involved in is it doesn't matter where you're going to pursue it or how you're going to do it. You can do it through an office like this, which has an opportunity for you to have a respectable looking office and things of that nature. You can do it with no overhead whatsoever. You can do it out of your car, if that's what you want to do, with the new electronic houses and cars that we've got. You could also do it out of your home and live a lifestyle that allows you to be at home and at the same time to produce good solid income for yourself. What's also amazing, number five, is the fact that when you think about it, it has virtually no competition at all, and understandably so. You know, I could quote you some numbers right now that would absolutely astound you. When you talk about in the state of Florida, which is where I happen to be from, there are 140,000 real estate brokers and agents in just the state alone. Do you know in California, there were over 600,000 of those? If you want to talk about insurance agents, we just happened to, matter of fact, gotten the list for those to take a look at. There are 1.8 million insurance agents that are just dealing with life and disability alone. There are 900,000 property and casualty insurance agents. As far as attorneys go, there are 800,000 of those attorneys. And yet, in our industry, and believe me, that includes everybody. That includes part-timers, it includes full-timers, it includes funding sources, it includes the independent brokers who are out there. I literally can tell you that there are less than 13,000 professionals in the whole country, a fraction that you will ever experience anywhere else. I will venture a guess, and I'm going to tell you right now, that there is never a transaction that you will ever lose, or a deal that you will ever come across that you're going to be stepping over anybody that's out there. In fact, the only way that you'll ever lose a deal is because you're not properly trained for it, and that's what we're all about. What's ultimately happened is we have produced a network at this point in time that has developed what I call the strategic alliance. And what's that strategic alliance? It's the strategic alliance, the dream team of those trained brokers who are out there matched up with the funding sources who are producing the cash. You know, the fact of the matter is, if you've got capital and you don't have deals, what good is the capital? I'll tell you the reverse of that. If you have the deal, you don't need the capital, because the fact of the matter is those funding sources are in line, ready to buy that deal anytime that you want. Let me talk a little bit about the cash flow industry so that you have a better idea of what's actually involved in these debt instruments that are out there. There are 5 basic categories of debt instruments. We have what we call the business-based income streams, number 1, the collateral-based income streams, number 2, the consumer-based income streams, number 3, we have the governmental-based income streams, number 4, and we have the insurance-based income streams, number 5. Those are the 5 major categories. What's interesting is, as many new income streams as we are finding right now, so far every income stream we've found has fallen into one of those 5 basic categories. They all have several things in common. They have somebody who is receiving payments, they have another person who is making the payments, and because of that, we bring to the table 2 additional people: the broker, who has an opportunity to broker that income stream, and the funding source, who has an opportunity to buy that income stream. All of the different types of debt instruments that we found, I have to tell you quite honestly, you've probably heard about them. You just never realized that they were part of these income streams that we talk about in this industry. For example, anytime somebody sells a house and takes back a promissory note, what you have is you have a collateral-based income stream. There are lots of other collateral-based income streams too. What about when you sell a car and take back a promissory note? What about when you sell a boat and take back a promissory note? What about when you sell a piano or another type of furniture, for example, or electronics in an electronics store, and take back a promissory note that says, I promise to pay over 12 equal monthly installments? Those are just simple obligations. They're debt instruments, and they provide a profit opportunity for you. In the business-based area, you've probably thought about these, or at least come across them, and never really realized what they were. Every single time one business sells goods or services to another business, they generate an invoice. Well, that invoice is a debt instrument, and it has produced an enormous industry that has over $65 billion worth of transactions every single year. In the consumer field, you've probably heard of timeshare. You've probably heard of memberships and health clubs and things of that nature. Well, all of that's available too. And all of those get traded every single year, along with a bunch of other consumer stuff. What about credit cards? You know, most people think that other than Visa or MasterCard or Discover or Optima, those are the typical types of credit cards that are out there. I want you to recognize that there are over 400 credit cards, not only that generate consumer debt, but also that generate what we call delinquencies on consumer debt. And those have spawned an enormously interesting area of this industry where people are actually trading in those delinquencies every day. In the governmental field, what's really hot right now is lotteries. A few years ago, there used to be half a dozen states maximum that had lotteries. Now, over half of the states have lotteries. And what do those lotteries produce? They produce somebody sitting out there, maybe you, collecting money on a lottery payment, and you just as soon, rather than having to collect the payments over a 15 or 20-year period, you just as soon cash in, wouldn't you, and get all of your cash today. Well, those lotteries are available, and there are people out there for you to contact where they would just as soon sell rather than have to receive those payments into the future. In the insurance areas, there are some enormous opportunities there, especially in an area called structured settlements. You're familiar with probably where in this litigious society that we've got, plaintiffs settle with defendants and agree to collect a certain amount of money over a certain period of time. Well, they have an opportunity to collect that, or they can sell that right and then just simply pocket the cash right now. See, the common ingredient of every one of these 47 debt instruments, and believe me, I could go on, but there are enormous profit opportunities every single time that I do. What's the common element with respect to all of them? The common element is, and it's that simple, that somebody is receiving payments on a future income stream that they would just as soon get cash for today. Their desire for cash is your opportunity for profit. Because if they get their cash today, you get a fee or a commission by lining them up with a funding source that's going to have an opportunity to buy them. Now, in your evaluation of this, what I want you to recognize is the enormity of the industry. Here's what it looks like. We have less than 13,000 practitioners in the entire country. On top of that, we have $1.8 trillion worth of debt, which at this point in time is available as an inventory for you. Number three, less than 1% of that debt is actually being transacted on an annual basis. You know what that means? What it means is that you've got an opportunity with 99% of that inventory to be able to go out there, find the deals available, and to be able to match those deals with the funding sources that are out there. Is that a profit opportunity for you? You bet it is, and there's only one thing missing, and that's your training. Let's talk about your training. Your training consists of the very best and the most novel and the most unique in the entire country. Fact of the matter is, and I have to say this with all modesty, our institution created the diversified cash flow industry, and it created the training for the diversified cash flow industry. What we provide is an opportunity for you to satisfy just the couple of critical elements which are necessary for you to make a profit. For one thing, we teach you how to go out and how to find those people out there who want to sell their debt instrument. We tell you not only how to go out and find them, but we tell you exactly how to find them in an efficient way, in a cost-effective way, so that you're not dumping a bunch of money in marketing or in advertising the way a lot of businesses or self-employed pursuits would require you to do. Second thing that we do is we train you exactly as to why those sellers want to sell, so that when you're talking to them on terms which they're going to understand, and based upon the service that you're providing to the table that allows them the opportunity to liquidate that debt and get the cash. After all, there is nobody out there who would want to take a future income stream other than the funding sources rather than cash today. Everybody wants to liquidate their future income streams for cash. You just simply have to understand how to talk in terms which are relevant to them, and of course that's the second aspect of what we teach you. The third thing which we do is we, most importantly, put you in touch with the funding sources. And I want to give you some sense of what that looks like. You know, you could go home, you could look in the telephone directory, you're not going to find these funding sources. You could look in the yellow pages, you're not going to find the funding sources. You could check the Wall Street Journal or Barron's Weekly, you're not going to find the funding sources. The fact is that we have spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to compile a proprietary directory of the funding sources that specialize in buying these debt instruments. And not only their name, address, and telephone number, of course, but the exact parameters, the exact types of transactions that each one actually buys. Moreover, those funding sources know that if you've been trained by the Diversified Cash Flow Institute, you know what you're doing. And because you know what you're doing, they're prepared to go out and work with you to be able to handle the transactions for everybody's profit. See, the good part about this is when one party profits, everybody profits. When the funding source buys a deal, or a transaction if you will, the broker makes a fee, commission, or profit on that same transaction, and the seller of that debt gets the cash the seller wanted to get for whatever reason was that the seller wanted to sell. It is a win for the seller, it's a win for the broker, and it's a win for the funding source. All three parties win in every transaction, and that's the type of industry that this is. You know, I could go on and on, obviously. As a matter of fact, you know the type of trainings which we do. And on the 5-day training programs, I can teach all 5 days. I don't, because we use visiting instructors that come from the industry and that are doing brokerage on a full-time basis, but I obviously could. And in the context of a 20-minute video, clearly I can go a whole lot farther than this. But the bottom line of what you need to understand yourself is whether you're prepared to be able to participate at this point. The industry is enormous. The profit opportunity is incredible. It's a white-collar industry that has a respectable place in the economy that you can operate out of your home on a full or part-time basis. Now, if that's the type of situation that you're looking for, that's all you need to understand, because we take care of the rest. What we do is we provide the one critical element that's missing, and that's your training. So if you're prepared to trade with me, and if you're prepared to exchange our mutual commitments, here's what I want to suggest to you. I commit myself to you that I will give you the best training in the industry to allow you to enter into this industry to allow yourself the opportunity to make a profit. And what I'm going to ask in exchange for that is your commitment to me to take that training to produce a profit for yourself. And if that's the type of exchange, my commitment to you in exchange for your commitment to yourself, if that's the type of exchange which you think has real value, I want to welcome you to those graduates who have at this point revolutionized the industry which we now call the diversified cash flow industry. Thanks so much for being with me, and I wish you the very best. God bless. See you later.